Welcome to One Insight. My name is Rich Litvin. I grew up in London and I now live in LA. And this is a podcast for extraordinary top performers. You see, I've coached some of the most successful and talented people on the planet. I see what most people cannot see, and I dare to say what most people wouldn't dare to say. And what I know about success is that on the other side of it, it can actually be lonely. You can feel like more of an imposter the more successful you become. And when you're the most interesting person in the room, you're actually in the wrong room. I coach around insight. Life looks one way, something happens, the world looks different, and your entire world changes. It can happen in an instant. And this podcast is called One Insight because a single insight can change everything. Tatiana is a fascinating woman who had a career in finance for almost 2 decades. By the end of her career, managing director of one of the biggest financial companies out there, managing billions of dollars of assets, had a career where, as a woman, she had roles that were very traditionally, clearly not places where women would be allowed to work. She's a rule breaker. When you tell Tatiana you can't do something, she says, I'll show you. Whether she says it inside her head or whether she says it out loud, she has a career of doing things that most people will say are impossible. And today I draw out her story. It's such a powerful tool to use as a coach to say to a client, tell me your story. And you'll listen as I draw out her story and I look for the golden threads in her story and help her have insights into her own world and how she created her world that she couldn't even see. We can't see our own world and how we show up in it. It was really fascinating to draw this out and then to see where Tatiana has come on this journey. And so you'll watch me or listen to me using this tool of the story to empower a client. It was a real fun episode to record. Hi, Tatiana.
Hi, Rich.
Hey, it dawned on me today, I'd like to do something different. I'd like to have you tell me some of your story because you have a really fascinating story. We've known each other for a while now. You've done group programs with me. You were in Project Kairos. You've been a one-on-one client. You've been a member of 4PC now. So we've known each other in all sorts of ways. And I know a little bit about your story. I find it fascinating, and I'm wondering if there's bits I've missed, and we'll see where we go from there. So take me back. You're at high school. What are you like as a little girl?
Mm-hmm. Well, at the high school, I was always late. That was one of the features. So,
why were you late? Were you late? Sometimes people are late because they don't pay attention. Sometimes people are late because nobody's going to control me. There's all sorts of reasons why people might be late. Why were you late on a regular basis?
Well, I don't think I asked myself that question like that. However, I think at that time, now, like through the lens of the distance and time, I think it was my way of rebelling.
Yeah.
Because I was in my junior school, I probably wasn't as strongly academically. And then I moved myself up.
Yeah.
So, and by the secondary school, I was at the top of the class. And of course, that took some adjustment of my spaced out personality because I loved looking in a window and speak German in my own rules rather than the rules of the teacher. And I had to change that. And
so you grew up, the one thing that hasn't been said, you grew up behind the Iron Curtain. You grew up, which city were you born in?
So I grew up in Moscow.
Okay.
And I had quite a privileged upbringing, well, as
Mm-hmm.
privileged, to whatever extent privilege existed in former Soviet Union.
Yeah.
But my stepdad was a rocket scientist, literally. So he was running a big part of the Russian peace space program.
Mm.
And my granddad actually was very senior executive in Estonian government and representative of Estonia in Moscow. And my mom was a doctor working for the Russian government. So she dealt with the blood of Brezhnev and sorts. So yes, so I was quite privileged from that point of view. And there was a lot of pressure. So there was a lot of pressure to perform, be a good student, not to disappoint, work hard.
So one of the things I know about you, and you mentioned it already, there's this rebel streak in you. I got no doubt you didn't know it back then. Being late was part of that. But there's this rebel streak that I see. There's been a thread, a golden thread throughout your life, your story. So there you are at high school. What do you do after high school? You go to university?
Yes, so I actually went to study international economic relations. And even that was a bit of rebellion because my rocket scientist mathematician stepdad, he was like, Tatiana, come on, are you going to study something like politics related? We live like in Soviet Union. Why don't you go and study maths at Moscow University? And I really wanted to travel. I didn't feel the country was run fairly. And I actually felt it was unfair towards women that, like my mom always worked and came from work with the bags full of, standing in lines, and men didn't used to do that as much, right? And I thought, this is so unfair. I'm not doing that.
So even as a youngster, you could see what was going on. Where did you go to? Where did you go to? You left the Soviet Union. Where did you go to?
So initially I studied in Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm.
I studied international economic relations there. And then it was at the break of Soviet Union. So there were opportunities to, I found myself as initially internship in Germany. Mm-hmm. And then I found the scholarship. Again, almost.
Because I know a little bit about this story. These were not simple things. It wasn't like, I'm just going to apply, and if I'm lucky, I'll get it. If I'm not lucky, I won't get it. There's something about the determination in you. Tell me something about that determination, that willingness to get something no matter what.
Sure. So because the German foundations actually came to our university to choose people to get a scholarship. However, I have been told that I'm not allowed to go because there were only 3 girls in our group of 12 German group, and the teacher said, "Well, you ladies need to think about your marriage." I was 18, and I was deeply upset about that. And I thought, fine, I'm not allowed to go, and I'm going to show them. So I literally wrote to everybody in Germany. And I remember many people were telling me, Tatiana, you're not going to get a scholarship. So it's like absolutely waste of time. Why don't you focus on finding opportunity within Russia? So, and I just wouldn't take no for answer. And I think I wrote so many letters. And so initially through when I found internship in Germany, I spent all my evenings like in a library because at that time we didn't have internet. So I would literally see, I remember I found this book where there was, all the German foundations. And I wrote, I think, probably half of the book. And eventually one said yes, to the surprise of everyone and myself. So that was amazing.
So even back in your early 20s, you were modeling this idea. Byron Katie has this principle she shares. If you're willing to receive 1,000 no's, you can have anything you want in life. And you were modeling that.
Yes, I definitely was. And I didn't have much to lose. So that helps, when you don't have much to lose. And, why not?
Okay. All right. We'll come back to that at some point. So you go off to Germany. What happens next? Give me a little short update. The next 10 years, what are the 3 highlights the next 10 years?
Actually, the highlight happened almost quite fast because this German foundation gave me a scholarship to study, to have the full study in Germany. And then I decided after my first year, I decided to go to some career fair at the Skiller at the university in Kiel. And I ended up speaking to the representative of Dresdner Bank. So they invited me to the selection for their management trainee program, for which normally the Germans would go with the full German degree. And they said, "Oh no, we'll take a punt and see how it goes with your Russian degree." So, and to my own surprise, I got through. So I was the first Russian from former Soviet Union whom Dresdner Bank hired into this highly prestigious management trainee program. And also I was the youngest ever because normally people in that program were somewhere between 27 to 30 and I was only 22. And I literally
Finish that sentence. Go on.
I called the scholarship and said, thank you so much, but I'm going to say no now to your scholarship after 1 year because I'm going to start working at Dresdner Bank. And they told me, look, do you know what? If you need a scholarship at any later point in life, like if you want to do PhD or anything else, give us a call. So I gave them a call like 4 years later when I was going to the business school in the US. And they supported me to go to the American business school, but was also unheard because they never ever supported anyone to go to American business school.
Okay, so I want to come to that aspect of this was unheard of. You use this phrase, they took a punt on me. And I'm going to say I don't believe that. I don't think they thought, oh, here's some loser showing up. Let's take a crazy risk. What do you think? You didn't know it then, a bit like back in the day, you didn't see that being late was a sign of, rebelling against the society that was trying to constrain you. But now looking back, what do you think it was that they saw in you that said, we're going to take one of the youngest people we've ever taken, who comes from the former Soviet Union, not from Germany. Why do you think they took that punt? They decided to choose you. I don't think it was as risky as they made it out to be.
I think because actually I probably was very curious. I have always been very curious. I asked a lot of questions. And I have never been afraid to ask questions might appear silly to someone. And I was very, very direct and good in interaction. And I guess I was courageous because it took courage, to go and start speaking to people who like in position of authority when you're a young student, never mind from completely different country. So it's almost like I almost was in my own world. And I think that's what probably people sometimes describe me throughout my life. Like Tatiana, you like, it seems to be living based on your own rules.
Nice. Well, yeah, look, you describe it in a very interesting way. 4 characteristics I see in you: highly curious, unafraid to ask questions, very direct, and very courageous. And not many people have any one of those characteristics, let alone all 4 of them wrapped up into one person. So again, looking back, I see the almost puzzled look on your face. This was just your world. So you couldn't see it any differently. But as we look back, I was a very fearful child. I didn't know how to say no when I was given an instruction. You've heard me tell the story about how I was cast in the school play when I was, I think, 12 years old. And from 11 to 16, I was in an all boys school. And it was a William Shakespeare play that makes me shudder to this day, The Midsummer Night's Dream. And I got cast not just in a female role, I was Titania, Queen of the Fairies. So as a young boy in London back then, that was really intense. And I cried myself to sleep every night and I didn't know how to say no. So I see qualities in you that are very unusual in your ability to be curious, unafraid, direct, and courageous. But for you, it's just your world. Except it was so different that people would say, you kind of live in your own world, Tatiana. Yeah, well, you did. It's not a world that most people live in, but that's hard to see when you're young inside. This is the world, not my world.
Yes.
You're a model of what we now call a created life. But life doesn't have to be the way that you're told. Women have a place in society. Get married at 18. You shouldn't be going off to university. You should study mathematics. And you said, you didn't know these words, but I'm creating my world. I'm creating my life. And you have done ever since. So you went on this path. I'm going to bring us up to date now. You went into finance then, high-end finance. Just give me a couple of snapshots along the journey.
Yes. So I stayed in Germany for a while, and then I decided it was too safe for me, and not. I had big aspirations, and I decided I would like to explore like American banks. So I actually, to the surprise of Dresdner Bank, who had big plans for me, I let it go, and I moved to the US with literally 2 suitcases on a student visa. And that was a big deal because Dresdner Bank had to prove public interest of Germany to employ me. So I remember like global head of HR was really surprised that I let go of that.
You say really surprised. Were they upset? Were they angry? Did they try and persuade you to stay?
Oh, yes, they did try to persuade me to stay, but also because I developed during my time in Dresden Bank really good relationship with that man who ran global HR at Dresden Bank. He understood why I did that on one hand. On the other hand, he was telling me that I would have more stable, fast career at Dresden Bank. However, I didn't want anyone to give me a journey for next 20 years. So, and I really was so drawn to American dream. And somehow, do you know what? I knew deep down that things will work out. My mom was shocked. She really liked that I was in Germany. She really liked that I was in stable position. She wasn't too big of the fan of dirty New York. And also, And also letting it all go, giving it all up and getting into debt because it's expensive to go to American business school.
For the sake of time, I'm going to speed it up a little
Yes.
bit. You go to New York, you're in New York for a while, you come to London, you're in London for a while. Take me towards the end, the last 5 years of your financial career. Which company are you in? What level are you working at?
Mm-hmm. So I was at that time at the end at Nomura, which was ex-Lehman operations in London. So I was running a loan sales desk. I was managing director on the trading floor, one of very few women. I had actually a dream job, what people would describe, because I literally was the only one who was promoted to managing director while working 4 days a week, which was unheard of in the front office. So I could do my work by that time with my eyes closed because I've done it for a while. And I knew transactions quite well. I knew clients quite well. And I was working 4 days a week. So that's probably what made me overstay a little bit beyond the time which I meant to stay.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that. So again, to give me a snapshot, how much assets under management are you responsible for? What level of finance are you operating at right now? What kind of numbers? Just to give people a sense who are listening, what you're up to at that moment.
So we were syndicating the transactions somewhere from average size, say, of 500 million, sometimes up to 5 billion. So I would be responsible for reducing our balance sheet positions. So let's say, for example, if we have underwritten, like, say, 3 billion deal, and we only would be holding on our balance sheet maximum 50 million position. So we needed to sell the remaining 2.95 billion in a loan market to various investors like hedge funds, private equity, CLOs were many of my clients. So and then I was trading those loans and high yield bonds.
So you're working to the tune of billions of dollars. You're working at a very high level. You've convinced this organization to allow you to work only 4 days a week, which is almost unheard of. You're a woman in that organization at a very high level, which is again almost unheard of. And again, because I know some of the story for the sake of time, there's a moment where, like many of the people listening here, you were burnt out in that career, right?
Yes, I lost joy. And I think that's because I used to have so much adrenaline and passion for what I was doing. And at some point it was gone. And I remember I was syndicating a deal and I was offering positions of over 50 million to clients on different transactions. And I call this hedge fund guy and I say, do you know what? I have some potatoes here and I have some apples to sell. And he goes, Tatiana, are you all right? So in that moment, I realized I was so bored.
You were playing with him when you said that? You were joking?
I was joking. Yeah. Of course I was joking.
No, but I wonder what your intention was. It was just to have fun in that moment?
Yes, I want exactly, because I guess because adrenaline was gone and I wanted to bring a bit more fun and a bit more lightness. And also this like kind of, let's make it not so serious, rather than.
I love the way you put it. The joy had gone. That was great. So we met 2 years ago now?
Yes, I think it's 2019, so 2 years ago.
Yeah. And you'd just begun your career as a coach. Like many people, when they leave that corporate world, they're looking for the next step. Sometimes they've had a career coach and they realize, I would love to do this. It's a way out. We come together, we go on this journey. Now, when we first met, there was this hunger in you to teach everything you were learning, to tell every new client about 50 different concepts that you learned that last week, to enroll everyone as a client. There was a sense of neediness that I had to work really hard with you to let go of that, because I could see from the moment I met you, you didn't need a client. If only you could relax into yourself, they'd be showing up. But sometimes when we're in this new career, we want to prove ourselves. It's hard when we come into a new career of coaching. It's the first time in our lives for most of us that our bank account starts going down and not up on a regular basis. And there was that real frenetic energy that you had. You remember that feeling?
Oh, yes, 100%. And actually now when you're speaking, I'm realizing it's not just then, it was my modus operandi always, right? So that's like, it's kind of, I'm going to prove to them. Even when I lost joy in banking, I was like, I'm going to prove to them I will be the first in the league tables. And that was the same. So if I'm going to be a coach, I'm going to be the best coach. I need to teach everyone. I need to convince, So that's kind of this intensity. Which is quite overwhelming.
So it's interesting, right? There's intensity is one of your gifts, but like every gift, there's a dark side. And there's a phrase you said earlier that I hear now. There's another golden thread through your life and career. I'll show you. I work with a number of clients who have this, that if someone says you can't do this, they just rub their hands together and go, I'll show you. Whether it's they say it out loud sometimes or just think it in their head. And that's what drove you. I'll show you. I'll show you I can do this. Not just because I can do it better than anyone who's come before. And that's what you've done throughout your life and career. Except in the early days of building a coaching business, it gets in your way.
Mm-hmm.
And we worked hard on that. I remember at the start of the pandemic, I offered an opportunity because you were a one-on-one client for you to come and join the members of 4PC on some don't have a word for them, but it almost felt like emergency calls at the start of the pandemic. Just, I will get on at 7 a.m, my time, 3 days a week, and I'll be there for anyone who's in my community. Because we didn't know what was happening. The world was shifting dramatically overnight. And you get on those calls. And I remember watching your interaction with members of 4PC, because you were operating up here really fast, very frenetic. And over the last 12 months, I've seen you slow down, get more and more solid, more and more grounded. And I've watched your business take off like this. It's been really amazing to watch. And I have a lot of admiration for what you've been creating, how you've slowed down. You brought the solidity and the gravitas and everything from the story that we just shared. But the best elements of each of those things are coming out now with you and your clients.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. It feels to me like almost like growing up.
Yeah. I think it's more growing out than growing up. Growing up is like, going from a child to an adult. There was no more growing up needed in that moment. But you're growing out, you're growing into yourself and you're landing. And so sometimes that intensity that came from doubt or fear or insecurity back as a youngster comes out now in a more powerful way. People, they want to be around your intensity. It's a conversation you and I have had for a while now, where our job as leaders is to polarize people. It doesn't refer to the polarization happening in society right now between different communities. It refers to when you show up as yourself and your unique way of doing things in the world, some people will be drawn to you in a way they would not be drawn to me, and vice versa. And that's what we want. We want to have 10 out of 10s, and everyone else says, oh, you're not for me. And you can build a beautiful business around a handful of clients like that, which is where you are now. You're building that exact business with some extraordinary clients, right?
Yes, that's right. It makes a lot of sense. And what comes to me is being able to show up authentically and being true to self rather than driven by proving something to someone else. Yes. And because once we show up authentically, that's very attractive because people have this deep desire to be able to show up authentically. And actually...
Go ahead, finish that sentence.
And actually that feels lighter and it feels easier and it feels happier place to be yourself.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So from this place that feels really good and solid as we're having a conversation, where should we go right now? I wanted to share that story because I think it's really valuable for everyone in our community to listen to your journey. And here we are. I can support you. We can have a conversation on anything you like. Where should we go in this moment?
Thank you. Well, I have been contemplating recently, this desire not to miss an opportunity has been a thread throughout my life. I remember back even during my time in Germany, say when I wouldn't get a project which I wanted to work on, I was working in project finance. I remember I called my dad and said, I can't believe I really wanted to work on this project and it's gone to another person. And he goes, Tatiana, there will be other trains. Like, you like standing, it looks like you are thinking this train, it's the last train ever. And what I realized that's how I have been running my life, right? And I still see it coming now. And, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I need to jump on this train and I need to jump on that train and I need to jump on that train. And sometimes I feel it's so easy can go to creating the exhaustion which I had in banking, because that's a way almost of disconnecting from this authenticity. Like, say, I love writing a book. I want to put out all the stories, but if I keep on jumping on all those trains, I will not have time to write a book and to create a podcast. So that's my how to shift from.
Tatiana, have you spent much time in California?
Not that much, only a little bit. Yeah, not that much.
There are trains here I see sometimes. I live in LA. Sometimes I'll drive along the freeway and the railway track is right next to us. And there'll be a train that has, I couldn't tell you how many carriages. It seems to go on forever because California is massive. And the trains that go from north to south, from San Diego all the way up, and they go beyond California, in fact, actually, they're enormous. And my sense is that what you're seeing life like the Eurostar, the train in England that goes, when it's in France, in Europe at least, it's a bit slower in England, but it's a super fast train, or the Japanese bullet train. And they're going fast and I've got to catch them and jump on really fast. What if the metaphor was correct, but you were just looking at the wrong train? And there's a train over here that's just going. And you can sit for 10 minutes and watch this train go slowly past you with carriage after carriage after carriage. And there's something in here around that. I'm staying with the metaphor because it's fun, that you've been looking at the wrong train. Turn to the other side where this beautiful train is just going. It's going to have a fantastic journey. And it's going to see the most amazing sights along the way because it's traveling through the whole of California. What happens as I share that metaphor with you?
Yes, that sometimes actually it's much more enjoyable to go on a slow train.
Yeah.
That's true. And not to have this thing like, when you sit on this train, like look outside and enjoy the view, and rather than thinking, oh, wouldn't I get sooner if I went on this other train? So that's,
I get it. I am driven. I am ambitious. I'm always in a hurry. There's a reason that probably the principle I teach more than any other is slow down to speed up. I am not teaching it for anybody else on the planet other than this guy here. I need to hear it on a regular basis. So I understand. I really do.
Yeah. It's kind of giving ourselves permission that it's okay to slow down.
Yeah.
It's okay to enjoy the ride. Yeah. And actually, the most important, it's also okay to enjoy the low days. Like I recently have been thinking about experiencing the experience and almost like so often we're trying to run away from those slow days.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, what if it was like just a very good movie, right? And if there is a very good movie, you got to watch the sad scenes as well. And they're enjoyable, right? In that way.
That's great. A friend of mine once, he was on the side of the road because he saw this beautiful sunset, and he got out, got his camera out, was taking these photos of the sunset when he realized, I'm not actually experiencing the sunset. I've got a beautiful photo that I'm going to share on social media, but I'm not even present to the thing that really is. And he put the phone away and just watched the sunset.
Mm. Yeah. I know that sensation. It's true.
Yeah. So I think we're here. This is one of those gentle moments at the end of a coaching session where we can dive into steps to take for what's next, and which is where most coaches go. And for me, I love what I call the art of gentle reflection. We're going to speak in a few days. If possible, I know you'll do your best to be in California for August for 4PC. If not, you'll be in California probably next February. And so there'll be a chance to watch some of those slow trains, but you can create some slow train moments anyway.
Yeah, it's a very good analogy. Thank you.
Thanks, Tatiana. Thanks for trusting me, and thanks for sharing your story. I think it was great, not only for everyone who's listening to hear, but sometimes we don't get much of a chance to reflect on our own story in the way that you did today.
That's so true, Rich. Thank you. I agree, actually, speaking with this lens of perspective.
So if you're listening or watching right now and you're a coach, it's a really powerful tool to use with the client, to draw out their story, to look for the golden threads, to see the themes that have helped them to become successful, to see the themes that have held them back, to watch what has made them successful until today that is now holding them back from their next level of success. And it's a real gift to somebody to draw out their story and share it and be present in it, because most of us don't get a chance to ever do that. So thanks for being that gift to everyone who's listening, Tatiana.
Thank you, Rich. It's really provided me a great opportunity to reflect and think.
For most of human history, it wasn't called coaching, it was called leadership. And it's what I love to do, to coach people, to lead people, and to mess with people's thinking. If you'd like more of this, or if you'd like to learn more about our community of extraordinary top performers, go to richlitvin.com/oneinsight.